Okay, coming back to the merry-go-round shloka. Or the cuckoo clock shloka. Read a little of the commentary. So this is 61. The Lord dwells in the hearts of all beings, O Arjuna, causing all beings by his elusive power to revolve as if mounted on a machine. Yeah, I know, Tao. Sometimes when we hear that, it's really scary. But it's okay. It's okay. You just have to center in the Lord, that's all. And then you can let the body and mind revolve. Yeah.
All around the center.
All around the center. Just stay centered. Oh. So, commentary from Swami Venkatesananda. Lovely. He says, God in his inscrutable, elusive power, Maya, constitute the entire universe. God's real nature is veiled by this elusive power, which cannot even be understood. There are three, and we've read one or two of these together, but there are three talks from Swami Vivekananda. Swami Vivekananda is amazing. Have you ever read, Radha, any of Swami Vivekananda's writings or his talks? We have a little book around here. It's a good contemplation. The book is called Jnana Yoga. There's one here that came to us under mysterious circumstances. And then, but we purchased several copies of it, and they're in that book cabinet facing north. So that one on the right side, near the bottom, in Swami Vivekananda's section. It's just called Jnana Yoga. It's a little book. I heard about these talks from Swami Sarvapriyananda. Swami Sarvapriyananda is Ramakrishna lineage. He oversees, stewards the oh my goodness, what is it called? It's Ramakrishna, but it is the, what society? Yeah. Vedanta Society of America. So Vedanta Society was started by Vivekananda when he was touring the U.S. And their mission in New York is their primary mission, Swami Sarvapriyananda. And Swami Sarvapriyananda is all over. His talks are all over YouTube. And he's been to Sedona a couple of times, and we were able to meet him and be with him. He spoke of these talks that Swami Vivekananda gave on Maya, which are astounding. They're really amazing talks. They're the most. So Maya, usually we just say Maya is the elusive principle, or Maya is the creatrix of the world, something like this. But illusion doesn't do it justice. And it is so mysterious. My dear Radha, if you just take one factor of it, which is that when you get in your bus and you drive, you don't forget that you are in the bus and you're driving it. Now, no doubt you have a closeness of experience with it. Yes, Dao. He wants to read the Gita Dhyanam. He says, come on, Dad. I was told we're supposed to read the Gita Dhyanam. So, do you forget that you're in the bus? Do you ever, for a moment, take yourself to be the bus? No. But here in this body, look at how persistent it is, the feeling that I am this body. So, And there's so much more to this Maya in terms of, often it's called the delusive principle as well. But the world itself doesn't exist as an independent world. Through the power of Maya, it appears to be. It appears to be. Even modern science has gotten it to a great extent. Science today, 100 years after the discovery of quantum behavior, quantum physics, today it's quite common for physicists to speak of the world as if it's a hologram. So, which is an interesting concept, because the concept of Maya in its projective power is very similar. And that is, it's taking what we can relate to as the light and projecting it out in a way that shadow appears. And then we take, by the delusive power, the shadow to be the truth. The light becomes veiled by the shadow. In the same way that the sun is actually always here, but we say it's not, because a cloud has covered it. But the cloud didn't actually cover it. It's very freaky. It's very odd, the ideas that we have about this life. Every single one of us are here in this body for a very limited time. I can ask a group of people, what's the leading cause of death? And until they've heard it and realize it, no one gets it. People will say cancer, or these days, COVID, or heart disease, or this or that, but it's birth. Birth is the leading cause of death. Last I know, 100%. And yet we come into this body and we see all of this happening around us, but we live as if it won't happen here. Really. And then when somebody says it, it's like this great fear comes and we have to run away. The talks by Swami Vivekananda on Maya are profound. And in that Jnana Yoga, there were talks that he gave in London when he was touring Europe. And he really gets to it, just in an amazing way. So this power of Maya, though, is said to be nothing other than a power of the Absolute. So Swamiji just says, it cannot even be understood. And this is true. Those who try to understand it, who try to explain it, miss the point. It's a practical reality. It's something that is. But it can be, and we fall under its sway. It is possible, though, to go beyond that Maya. In other words, it's possible to be free of it. There's said to be two powers of Maya. The first is the projecting power, and that is making this world from light, this appearance from light. That's the projecting power. And that is said to be eternal, beginningless, endless. As long as there has been an absolute, which is eternal, no beginning, then the projection has been. And does it end? It never ends. The second power is said to be the veiling power or delusive power, which is where we take ourselves to be this limited form. That is said to be beginningless. In other words, can't know when it started, but it has an end. And the end is said to be an individual end for each individual. And the end is what is called self-realization or awakening in the different traditions, which is the end of the feeling that I am separate, alone, incomplete, and that I am this body. But it's so mysterious. He says, our own intuition and the direct realization of the great sages confirm the truth, which has been beautifully expressed by Tulasidas, the author of the Ramayana, in Hindi. Thus, I realize that the whole universe is Sita Rama, Sita representing Maya and Rama representing the Lord. Though Ishvara and Maya are two in one, symbolized in the beautiful picture of Shiva and Parvati, sharing the two halves of one body, they are the opposite poles. In the text, the word used for dwells is tishtati, meaning stands firm. So the Lord stands firm in all beings, but Maya is dynamic and makes everything revolve. Thus, when we are at peace within ourselves, we may understand that we are in the light of the Lord, and when the mind is restless, it is caught up in Maya. We can learn a wonderful lesson by watching a merry-go-round. The children farthest from the center whirl wildly, those midway move more slowly, and the one at the center is at peace. You have the free will to choose where you wish to be. If we catch what he's sharing. So in this world, this is the choice. We can locate ourselves in the most wavy bits, in the rajas, in the tamas, or we can locate ourselves in the least wavy bits, the sattva, the clarity. And it's not an outer place. It's really, we're talking about the mind. We can bring the mind to sattva and have clarity. That's free will. Doesn't have anything to do ultimately with what's happening to us outside. It's the choices that we make. And this is the choice that's being discussed here as well. Or we can get it all wrapped up in the world process, the Maya. Either is our choice. And so he describes the merry-go-round with the kids and the ones in the outer part of it who are going fastest and the ones who are in the inner part who are going the slowest. And the ones that are in the inner part going the slowest are still recognizing that the center is there, the unmoving center is there. But the ones out here have forgotten all about the unmoving center. It's a good analogy he gives. It says, God dwells in the heart of all beings. These beings are part of nature. The infinite reflections of God in her own nature are misunderstood as the ego. There is naught else which you may hold up as ego. No one's ever found out where the ego is. No one even knows where it's centered in the brain. Ego is as mysterious as Maya is mysterious. The feeling that I'm separate, alone, and incomplete, which every single being experiences, which is false, it's also universal. When we look at this life, the senses and the mind are made to go out. And so Tao right now is going out everywhere, and he's discovering all of the diversity. And in the process, the mind and the diversity are becoming one. So the mind is learning to go. He came from a place of unity, by the way. But now the mind is learning to divide itself up and to go after all of these objects and establish relationships with all of the objects as independent objects. And so he's on the merry-go-round.
Even in the most ideal, reason situation, that would still have to happen, right? You have to go.
Has to happen.
Experience.
Has to happen.
Has to happen. Tired of it and finally search for something else.
Has to happen. Yeah, it's part of a process. What you can do as parents is help him to explore in ways that he can still relate to centering. And so practices that you engage in. For one, loving being with him. Mantra is actually helpful, and you've started him with mantra. So, yeah. But he has to discover, and that will naturally take him to the urge to find the center once again. You know this, Radha. That's what the bus is about. Oh, we get tired of the way, quote unquote, life is. But what we're getting tired of is the merry-go-round. He says, another great lesson is alluded to here. Anything that leads us to our center is the grace of God, or Ishvara. Anything that tempts us away from there is the work of Maya. Thus, pleasure, prosperity, and success make us extrovert. They're tempting baits of Maya. Pain, adversity, and failure should actually bring us back to ourselves. They make us to withdraw. Obviously, they're the signs of the grace of God. So, what we think is grace is, yeah, it's an interesting way of relating to grace, isn't it? That which helps us to center, that which helps us to find our center once again. So, coming from there, Lord Krishna says this, 62, fly unto him for refuge with all thy being, O Arjuna. By his grace thou shalt obtain supreme peace and the eternal abode. So, and the Sanskrit word is Sharanam. We sing Ganesha Sharanam this morning. Sharanam meaning take refuge in. Take refuge in. So take refuge in Ganesha. But here, take refuge in capital H, in the absolute. Take refuge in the absolute with all of your being. You only come to ashram because you've been wounded enough. Right. And you've gotten tired of the merry-go-round enough to ask questions. And then we end up somehow mysteriously with Krishna under whatever name. And this will be the guidance. Hold on to me. Hold on to me. You don't have a choice about the body and even the mental aspect being thrown about on the wheel, but you have a choice in what you take shelter in. And that's Sharanam, take shelter in me, take refuge in me. So asylum or refuge. Until we take refuge or seek asylum in the center of our being, we shall be whirled helplessly on the wheel of the merry-go-round of birth and death. We can take birth again and again, experiencing newer joys and suffering up-to-date agonies, modern agonies, but we shall remain where we were ages ago, bound to individuality and the fleshly tabernacle. 63, 64. Thus has, and this is, we're at that point. Thus has wisdom, more secret than secrecy itself, been declared unto thee by me, having reflected over it fully, then act as you wish. Act as thou wishest. So we can tell we're coming to the close of the Gita teaching. Hear thou again my supreme word, most secret of all, because thou art dearly beloved of me, I will tell thee what is good. So we can say it another way, without the thee and thou, I've instructed you in the science of yoga now. And now so reflect over it, please reflect over it. And Krishna really takes the position of the friend in this teaching. Even though he's coming from the absolute center, when we read it and coming through it, we've gotten a flavor for this, such compassion. He's not telling us you have to do this. And here again, we get that bhava, we get that attitude. He's not saying you have to do this. He's saying, I'm your friend, I am sharing with you the wisdom, please reflect on it one more time, and then you do as you will. Then you choose. Part of the beauty of the Gita teaching, and really all of the teachings of yoga, is they're not sometimes it can come in the hands of someone who proselytizes, who preaches it and says it must be this way. And some of the lineages kind of have that tendency to go there, which is, this is the only way it is. You have to believe this way. But in fact, in the teachings, as we study them, we never actually see that in the ancient teachings. We see, here is the view. Here is what the sages have discovered to be the truth. Here is the way to discover it within yourself. And now you will have to do it. And it's up to you. And you have free will. You may not have control of the things that happen to you outside, but you have free will as it relates to the choices that you make inside. What direction will you go? This way you have free will, right? What do you take refuge in? I remember taking refuge in a whole different set of stuff. And then there was a point at which I chose only to take refuge in the absolute. But it had to be a choice. It is free will. And it only will come when it makes sense for us. So it's not, so no one here is saying you have to do this. Instead, I've shared it with you. Now it's your choice. But let me tell you one more time, and the next sloka, which we'll pick up tomorrow morning, he summarizes the entire teaching in one sloka. But first, before you go, let me tell you one more time. So, okay, we'll close for the morning. Questions or comments? Anything? No. So we're wanting to wrap up close to 7:30 this morning for the program that Hari's actually joining me for the program. Please check. I promised this morning we would check in.
Says, we'll miss you, so Geeta.
Sorry?
I'm sure what that means. We'll miss you, so Geeta.
We'll miss you so
Geeta.
Geeta. Yeah, okay. We'll miss you so. Well, for who said that?
Ban something.
Okay. The good news is we don't have to miss the Gita. We can live it. And we can keep reading it. You know, in the villages in India, the Gita is chanted still traditionally, multiple slokas every day, and just memorized by the family members. So don't stop. Don't stop. Don't miss me, says the Gita. Okay, short final prayer in RT, page 174. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Orvaivakmeva Bandhanan Mritor Mokshiyamam Mritat Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Orvaivakmeva Bandhanan Mritor Mokshiyamam Mritat Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Orvaivakmeva Bandhanan Mritor Mokshiyamam Mritat Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. O adorable Lord of mercy and love, let us abide in thee forever and ever. Humble our Satguru Shivananda Maharaj Ki, and for all the saints and sages of all the traditions. Jai.